Can you imagine this? A boy who carried knives to school grew up to rule Italy like a king. At one time, Mussolini was the most powerful man in Europe, dreaming of becoming the modern Julius Caesar of Rome. World leaders admired him: Hitler, Churchill, Roosevelt. Even great thinkers from the East respected his rise. His followers were so loyal they would kill his enemies at just a signal, and hang them in the city square as a warning. But history has its own justice. Mussolini himself was hanged upside down in that very same square. I'm going to tell you the unbelievable story of Benito Mussolini, the man who turned from a school bully into a dictator who shook the world. As a child, Mussolini was violent. He carried knives to school and bullied classmates. He was expelled again and again. But here's the twist. This stubborn boy, once hated by everyone, later grew into a man who could grab attention anywhere. He was tall, strong, and full of confidence. When Mussolini spoke, people listened. Crowds were drawn to him as if he had a magnetic pull. Yet behind this powerful image, Mussolini admired Karl Marx. When he went to Switzerland searching for work, he was broke. No money, no friends, nothing. And all he carried was a single picture of Karl Marx. At first, he did odd jobs, but soon he joined a trade union, and his role was to spread its message. He was a quick thinker, a smooth talker, and a passionate reader. People loved his fiery words. But the Swiss government didn't. They cracked down on socialists, and Mussolini was arrested. And guess what? That arrest only made him more famous. Even in Italy, newspapers now wrote about him. When he returned to Italy, he tried teaching in a school. But just like he failed as a student, he also failed as a teacher. So, he returned to politics and writing. It was the night of October 28, 1922. Thousands of Mussolini's black shirts, armed and ready, surrounded Rome. The world thought a bloody revolution was about to begin. But instead, a single telegram changed history. King Victor Emmanuel III sent Mussolini a message. "If you stop the march on Rome, I will make you Prime Minister." Mussolini's gamble had worked. No bullets, no battles, just one deal with the king. The very next day, dressed in his finest suit, Mussolini entered Rome like a hero. He shook the king's hand and became Prime Minister of Italy. But he added one shocking demand: dictator-like powers for 1 year, and the king, powerless, agreed. Mussolini now controlled the government, but here's the twist. Many of the ministers in his cabinet weren't even real fascists. They hadn't fought in his struggle, but they enjoyed the rewards. In 1924, Mussolini openly rigged elections. His candidates won through force and fear. With his majority in parliament, he rewrote the law, making himself dictator for life. But there was a problem. Mussolini's old fiery speeches had promised solutions to every Italian crisis. Now, as a ruler, if he failed, the people would turn against him. So he changed tactics. He showed himself as a builder of peace, and even a man of religion. One move shocked the world. He signed an agreement that recognized Vatican City as an independent country. Since then, Vatican has remained the smallest nation on earth. At the same time, Mussolini silenced his critics. Newspapers were shut down, trade unions banned, opponents jailed. Globally, the timing was perfect for him. Russia had just fallen to communism, and Western powers were terrified of socialism spreading. Britain and America wanted strong allies, and Mussolini fit the role. So the praise poured in. Pope Pius XI called him a saint sent by Providence. Winston Churchill said he was the greatest living lawmaker, and even US President Roosevelt admired him as a champion of peace. The influence was so strong that in 1931, the famous poet-philosopher Allama Iqbal met Mussolini in Italy. Iqbal was so impressed, he wrote a poem in Mussolini's honor. But Mussolini's most dangerous admirer was a young German soldier. His name, Adolf Hitler. Hitler studied Mussolini's fascism and created an even deadlier version, Nazism. He declared Germans as the superior race and treated Mussolini like his mentor. When Hitler came to power in 1933, the two dictators joined hands. Mussolini even supported Hitler's anti-Semitic policies, firing Jews from jobs, arresting them, and handing many over to the Nazis. But secretly, Mussolini didn't respect him. When Hitler first demanded Austria, Mussolini refused. He later mocked him as a little crazy clown. Yet history had its irony. Soon after, Mussolini handed Austria to Germany, and the two became close allies. By 1935, Mussolini's hunger grew beyond Italy. He invaded Ethiopia in Africa, and later Albania in Europe. But while Mussolini was chasing small victories, Hitler was winning big wars. Poland, France. One by one, countries fell. Mussolini became jealous. He didn't want Hitler to take all the glory, so he too entered World War II by attacking Greece. It looked like an easy victory. Italy was strong, Greece was weak. Mussolini even offered Greek generals gold and riches if they surrendered. Some. But the Greeks refused. They fought bravely, pushed Italy back into Albania, and shocked the world. Britain joined Greece and began destroying Italian ships. Mussolini was humiliated. In desperation, he turned to the same man he once mocked, Hitler. Hitler scolded him, but still sent German forces, and in just 3 weeks, Greece fell. But for Mussolini, the damage was done. The myth of his invincibility was broken forever. From then on, defeat followed him everywhere. His armies collapsed in Ethiopia, Somalia, North Africa, even Russia. The final blow came in 1943 when American and British troops invaded Sicily. This time Mussolini could do nothing except watch silently. His own fascist Grand Council met and voted him out of power. Mussolini refused to accept it, still claiming he was Italy's true ruler. But the king had also abandoned him. On royal orders, Mussolini was arrested. The man who once terrified Europe was now a prisoner in a lonely mountain fortress. The news shocked Italy. Mussolini was arrested. In a single night, the atmosphere of fear disappeared. People tore down his statues, burned his photos, and cursed his name. But then, his old friend returned. Yes, the same crazy clown he once mocked, Adolf Hitler. Hitler sent German commandos who freed Mussolini and flew him to Munich. Soon, Nazi forces occupied northern Italy and put Mussolini back in power. But now, he was only a puppet. The man who once dreamed of reviving the Roman Empire like Caesar or Constantine was now just a shadow, dancing on Hitler's strings. Even Winston Churchill, once his admirer, said, "Mussolini is no longer a leader, but a slave of Hitler." Time moved fast, and by 1945 the world had changed. Germany was collapsing. Hitler's forces were retreating everywhere, and Mussolini, without Hitler's protection, was finished. He tried to escape. In April 1945, Mussolini disguised himself as an old German soldier. He wore a helmet, a heavy coat, and sat beside a woman. She looked like his daughter, but in truth, she was his lover, Clara Petacci. She had sworn to stay with him until death. The convoy headed towards Switzerland, but near a small lakeside town called Dongo, socialist fighters stopped them. When they searched the group, they recognized the old soldier. It was Benito Mussolini. He and Clara were captured, imprisoned in a farmhouse, and at dawn taken to a nearby village. There, they were ordered to stand against a stone wall. Mussolini knew it was over. He turned to the firing squad and said, "Be careful. Aim straight for the heart." Moments later, shots rang out. Mussolini and Clara were dead. But this was only the beginning of humiliation. Their bodies were taken back to Milan, the very city where Mussolini once ruled with pride. But now, they were thrown in the public square like trash. Crowds gathered, millions cursed him, spat on him. His body was beaten, stoned, and finally hung upside down. It was in this same square, only 8 months earlier, that Mussolini had dumped the bodies of his enemies. Now, it was his turn. One of his loyal followers, Achille Starace, once called Mussolini a god. He too was dragged to the square. Soldiers pointed to Mussolini's lifeless body and mocked, "Look, here lies your god." But Starace gave one last salute to his dead leader before being shot and hung beside him. Mussolini's body refused to find peace. Buried outside the city, his grave was desecrated daily. Enemies stomped on it, insulted it. Then, in 1946, his supporters secretly dug it up. They washed the body, left a note on the grave. "Our leader, you are with us. We will cover you with roses. Your virtues will outshine their hatred." Months later, authorities recovered the body in a Milan synagogue. Eventually, in 1957, Mussolini's remains were handed to his widow and buried in his family cemetery. A statue and fascist symbols were placed there, and still attract supporters even today. The story didn't end with him. One of his sons, Romano Mussolini, became a famous pianist and film producer. His granddaughter, Alessandra Mussolini, even became a member of the European Parliament. But globally, fascism is now condemned. Yet in parts of Italy, some still gather at Mussolini's grave, believing his ideas could make Italy great again. Did you know? Vatican City, the world's smallest country, still exists today because of Mussolini's 1929 deal with the Pope. I have a question for you. Was Mussolini a tyrant who destroyed Italy, or a revolutionary who failed in his dream of empire? Do answer in the comments.